Hey everybody, it's Emily, and today we are going to do our own version of Girl Scout cookies. It's Girl Scout cookie time, and everybody loves Girl Scout cookies. My personal favorite are the tagalongs or the peanut butter patties, depending on what part of the country you live in. So we are going to make some homemade tagalongs or peanut butter patties, whatever you want to call them. And we're going to make them ourselves, so that way we don't have to pay $5 a box, and we can make as many as we want. The upside is that we can make as many as we want. The downside is that we can make as many as we want. So we're going to get started with the homemade peanut butter patties or tagalongs, and I'm going to show you guys how to make the dough and the filling, and then in our next video I'm going to show you guys how to dip them in the chocolate coating and have a completed cookie, because there's a few little steps that need to go into our peanut butter patties. So be sure to stay tuned for the next video, and I'll explain some things in this video, and then you can tune into the next video. Okay, so let's get started. Hang on just a sec. Let me adjust the screen for you. All right, so what we're going to do to make our peanut butter patties is I've got a stick of butter, and I'm halving my recipe. This particular recipe makes quite a few, so I'm going to cut my recipe in half, and this particular recipe, the half recipe, makes about a dozen and a half, depending on how big you roll your cookies out. So just keep that in mind. So what we're going to do is we're going to take half a stick of butter that's been softened, and if you don't have time to have it out in room temperature for a little while, just stick it in the microwave. What I like to do is take a stick of butter and put it in the microwave for about 5 to 8 seconds on each side, so you get all four sides kind of evenly softened, and that softens it up perfectly. So we're going to take our stick of butter, we're going to take a 1/4 cup of just granulated sugar, and we're going to add that in. Then the other ingredients that you need are going to be flour. You're going to need a cup of all-purpose flour. You're going to need some baking powder. You're going to need a little bit of salt. You're going to need some vanilla, and you're going to need a little bit of milk. So I like to use whole milk when I bake just because it's richer, adds much better flavor, but if all you have is skim or 2%, that's okay too. So what we're going to do is we're going to put our butter and sugar together, and we're going to cream that together, which just means that we're going to mix it together until it's light and fluffy. Depending on how powerful your hand mixer is, or if you have a stand mixer like I have here, since this is a small recipe, I'm not going to dirty up a whole stand mixer bowl. But depending on the power of your hand mixer, it may take a few minutes. My particular mixer, it doesn't take very long at all. So I'm just going to cream this together until it's light and fluffy. Okay, so this is what it looks like. Light and fluffy, lovely. Okay. Then we're going to add in our flour mixture. So we want to do flour, the baking powder, and the salt. So again, it's a cup of flour, all purpose. We're going to do just about 1/8 of a teaspoon of baking powder. So I have a 1/4 teaspoon here, and I'm just going to use half of it. So just about 1/8 of a teaspoon, kind of just a tiny amount. And make sure that it's baking powder and not baking soda. Baking powder and baking soda are two different things. Then we're going to add in some salt. We just need about a 1/4 teaspoon of salt. Okay. And then we're just going to mix all that together until it's incorporated. So now we have, it's kind of crumbly looking, you see there? That's what we want it to look like. Because now we're going to add in our milk and our vanilla. So we just need a tablespoon of milk. And about a 1/4 teaspoon of vanilla. Okay. So we're just going to add that in and mix that in. Okay, so now just keep mixing it until it starts to come together and look like a dough, because you want it to be a dough, okay? So once you've got that mixed together, then what you're going to do, and I usually just use my tablespoon for this, you're just going to roll these into a ball about 1.5 inches in size. So I just get about a tablespoon of dough, a little more than a tablespoon of dough, and just kind of roll that into a ball. Okay, maybe a wee bit smaller. Okay, so roll it into a ball about yay big, about 1 to 1.5 inches in circumference. Then we're going to put it on our pan, and using either your thumb, or you can use, the back of your tablespoon if you want to. You can use a melon ball or whatever you have handy. We're just going to make a little divot, because again, our peanut butter patties have a divot in the bottom of them, right? Because we have to have room for our peanut butter filling. So just put a divot in it, and then when we bake these off, it may rise up some, and then you can just redo your divot with the back of your spoon or melon ball or whatever you have once you take it out of the oven. So I'm just going to make little divots here. And I'll show you one more, and then I'm going to show you how to make the filling. Okay, so again, just about a tablespoon of dough. Roll it into a ball, or as close approximation to a ball as you can get, about yay big. Put it on your pan. Space these out about 1 inch to 2 inches apart, and then just make a little dent in it with the back of your spoon, or your tablespoon, or your melon ball, or whatever you have. Okay, so you have a nice little place for your peanut butter filling to rest. Okay, so that's what our cookies are going to look like before we put them in the oven. I'm going to clean these off, and I'm going to show you guys how to make the filling. It's really easy, so don't despair. I'm just going to clean these off a little bit so that we can make our filling using the same beaters, because, there's no point in dirtying up 40 different sets of beaters, and if you're anything like me, you probably only have one set of beaters at home. So we're just going to use the same beaters. We're going to be like Michael Jackson and just beat it. Just beat it. Okay, so our filling, what we're going to do is we're going to use peanut butter, creamy peanut butter, confectioner's sugar, which I've measured out here in this little cup, and then just a tiny bit of vanilla and salt. Okay, so we're going to use about 3/8 of a cup of confectioner's sugar. Just measure that out there. That's 1/4 plus 1/2 of a quarter cup. Bakery math, very important, very important. If you don't know your fractions, you're sunk at the bakery. And then we're going to use 3/4 of a cup of creamy peanut butter. So I'm just going to measure out 3 1/4 cups here. This is very similar to if you've ever made Buckeyes, those little peanut butter and chocolate candies. This is very similar to Buckeye filling. So if you've ever made Buckeyes, then that's half the battle because you already know kind of what goes into this. Okay, so if you've never made Buckeyes, you definitely should try them because they are delicious. And it kind of reminds me a lot of the tagalongs. Okay, so there's our 3/4 of a cup of creamy peanut butter. And then again, just a tad bit of vanilla. So I'm going to use about a 1/4 teaspoon of vanilla. And just a little bitty pinch of salt. So I'm just going to measure this out in my hand and just use maybe about half of that. So, and then throw the rest over your shoulder for good luck. And then we're just going to mix that all together. If I can get my beaters in. There we go. So just mix that all together until it's nice and smooth. Okay? Takes no time at all. And that's what it looks like. Okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and get some of these baked, and then I'm going to show you in the next video how to fill them and then how to put them into the chocolate coating. So stay tuned for the next video, and that's when we'll finish up our homemade tagalong peanut butter patties.